Hey, welcome back to Level 6 Fabrication. I'm Chris, that's cameraman Mac, and this is a box full of goodies. So this is officially the first episode where we're no longer busting up our hands taking apart Project Bentley back there, and we're going to start by opening this up. This is our brand new tubing bender. Really excited about this point. I love installing roll cages, building tube frame chassis, all that kind of stuff, and it's so much cleaner. I love that. We're going to open it up, set it up. We're going to have to anchor it into the ground, so we've got ourselves a hammer drill, a 5/8 inch concrete bit. I can do this, I promise. And we got, I remember the brand, Red something, anchors with lag bolts, a few spacers, just to make sure we get everything planted right and get everything level, and then we'll show you how it all operates. But for now, let's do the unboxing and setup. So everything that we wanted was back ordered. We lucked out. We had some friends over at KMS, and they had an incredible sale going on. They had the bender unit, 3 dies, and a stand for an incredible price. It was like 40% off, so we lucked out. Otherwise, we'd be waiting another 3 or 4 weeks to get one from JD Square. Very good bender, but really hard to get their stuff right now, especially up here in Canada. So let's dive into this guy. I got wood. All right. In case you're wondering, this box here is 68 kilograms, so it's not light. Really nice to have a stand because some benders don't come with it, and it's quite a pain in the ass to find out you don't have one and then have to make one. Instructions. Dial gauge, this is what tells you how far you're bending. You set it at 0 before you proceed with the bend. This is a manual type bender. It can be adapted for a hydraulic, but we're just going to use it manually because I need the workout. Ratchet arm. That's the ratchet swing body. Bunch of pins. Bunch more pins. This is the gold right here. Not this, this is kind of goofy. We'll replace this. This is what goes on there, and it's the dial indicator. You start it at 0 and then it'll swing around the guide. Tell you what angle you bent it at. I prefer just using like a thick copper wire. It holds nicer and doesn't look as goofy. I'm sure this works, but it's not quite as accurate as I'd like. These are your die sets. This is what's really important. So people ask, what's the difference between a tubing bender and a pipe bender? A pipe bender just radiuses random pipe, and pipe, it's measured in schedule. So it's actually the outer, when you get a dimension of it, it's the outer diameter of it, whereas tubing is the inner diameter. And the difference when you're bending them is obviously one wouldn't fit in the other one's dies because the outer diameter is different. But a tubing bender, the dies used go fully around the circumference of the tube. So you've got one on one side, and then you've got the the inner die piece, it does this and it swings around it and it keeps the shape of it so it doesn't crumple on itself and kink, because that no racing regulatory body allows kinks in pipe. It has to be a smooth radius bend. Very important. You know, spend the money, get the right one. You'd hate to go and spend hundreds of dollars on your metal, buying a cheap pipe bender, and then going and finding out your cage after you've welded it in is not certifiable for however you're racing. Buy a proper tubing bender. Done with that rant. But this is the die sets. We've got 1 inch, 1.5, and 2, and that'll get us pretty much everything we need to do for the Project Bentley build here. Okay, so what you're going to need to do this, because there's a base plate on this and it's got 4 holes and it's got to be anchored because you put a lot of leverage on this. You need yourself a hammer drill. This is actually on the smaller side. A larger Hilti would probably do better. This is a 5/8 diameter concrete bit. The sleeves, the threaded sleeves, are 2 inches. So because of the taper up here, we're actually going 2.5 because we've got to sink these threaded collars in. They go 2 inches in. You set it with this set tool. It's just a pin that goes in, you tap on it, and then 1.5 inch bolts and spacers. Not sure how long that is in time-lapse land, probably 20-30 seconds, but that's at least 3-4, maybe even 5 minutes to hold, depending on how much torque your hammer drill has. There's a lot of variables drilling into concrete, and like how much resin is in there, how many rocks are in there, the size of the stones in there, and it really depends on the quality of your concrete, where you are in the world, but expect each hole to take at least, say, 5 minutes. What's really important is when you put it in there, I usually like to use a piece of wood to tap down on, so you don't, because it still usually sticks out of the hole, you know, 1/2 inch or so, and you really don't want to hit that and go sideways from too much of a dramatic hit at an angle. So I like to just tap, get it really close to flush, and then you can, for the last couple, just tap it in. But what's really important is this. This sets it in the hole so it doesn't ever spin. And you can tell when you're done because it'll go from feeling like a soft hit, and all of a sudden it'll just stop and you'll feel a very solid pushback on the pin. That means it's anchored. We're good there. And I cannot stress this enough. Do not mark out the 4 holes and drill them and expect them to line up with any kind of stand. Concrete is its own beast when you're drilling into it. You do 1 hole at a time, put your plate in place, and then drill the other ones with the plate in place. I promise you, 9 out of 10 times it will not work if you just trace out the holes from the stand and then try drilling them. They're going to go in slightly different angles. It's going to be a nightmare. 1, anchor it down, then do the other 3 systematically. So let's do that. All right, so probably saw a little bit of difference there. We got a hammer drill that actually works. The last one burnt out after about a 3/4 inch on the second hole. The new one worked so well that it ripped in so quick that it didn't, like I think the old one working so hard reamed the hole out a little bit, so it was easier to get the sleeve in. But these ones were such a perfect hole that, as you saw, I actually had to hit pretty hard to anchor these, and I actually put the bolt, the second one, when I went to put it in, I hit it with just the hammer. Remember I told you not to do that? It was the only way I could figure out how to do it, and it actually made the threads compress a little bit, which is why you saw me having to use the impact to sink it down. What I did on the third and fourth bolt, ran into the same issue, but I took one of the bolts, made sure to thread it like 4 or 5 good threads, and then tapped it gentler to get it to the full depth needed, and then again used the setting tool to make sure it anchored into the concrete. Now we got all 4 lining up. We don't have a level here today, but what you should do before you ever start bending is make sure you get all this flush, whether you use wooden shims or you use washers underneath. Make sure this is always level, because then you can base all your bends later on off of knowing that this is perfectly parallel to the ground. So I'm going to anchor this down just to show you how it'll sit, and then we'll get into putting the actual bender up top here. And don't nail them down really hard to begin with. Like that just was the first catch of the impact, because it's nice to be able to have this a little bit of maneuverability so you can line everything else up. And if you get them slightly wrong, you can always just remount the base plate, but it's better just to get it right. That's why you notice I started this one, then I put this on. I didn't go and mark all 4. I think I said that at the beginning of the last video. Don't go and mark all 4 and try and drill 4 perfect holes, because I guarantee you, unless you're super lucky, it's not going to happen. Get one down, lock it down, start the second one, drill that out, then you can anchor those 2 and start these with the stand there. I found that to be the easiest way. There you go. See how it's still a little bit loose? That's probably the best way to do it for when you are going to set level. Leave a mill or 2 in each direction. That way, if you need to put something under, when you've got the level on it, you can easily do that without having to back it out and try and figure out which one is off. You're just better off leveling it that way. Now we'll mount the bender. So we've unpacked all the pieces of the bender. We did a test run to make sure we'd at least not look like idiots, and unfortunately we would have looked like idiots, so I guess fortunately we didn't have the camera running. The instructions, if you've never done this before, and I'm lucky that I have, it was years ago, so the instructions didn't make a lot of sense, and some of it came pre-assembled. Like they talk about having this brass alignment dowel in here, you know, kind of collar on, you know, already pressed into one of these, and you're supposed to align it. Well, ours came like this, so those parts of the steps really mess you up. One of the things that I would definitely recommend, and it's one of the last things it tells you to do in the instruction manual, is I would definitely find the 2 alignment holes down here for your gauge and put those in first, because that tells you which way's up and which way's down, because it only goes in one way. It's got the large hole in the center and then 2 bolt holes. So there's only one way to do that, and that's like that with those 2 bolts. So that always tells you, if you're trying to figure out which way and you're flipping it back and forth, the numbers face up. That's obviously so you can see it. So this is what we're going to start with. These are 12 mil bolts, I believe. So just be very careful, because this can act as very heavy scissors if you do something really silly. So align this with those holes. I know the camera angle isn't the best. Apparently neither is my coordination. So there's one. Second one's located right there. There's two. And once again, don't lock anything down. Just go finger tight, because you don't want to find out later that something's just missing by a little bit, but you tightened it too much, then you got to go back and loosen everything. Then while you're at it, you might as well throw this dowel in, because that sets the pivot for the whole thing. And since it lines up there, you know at least that's a good base. So there's the body of what we're going to be used to bend the tube. I guess the easiest place to go from there is to set your upper and lower guide heights. So that's where these collars come in. Like they had it all pre-assembled like this, and with the washers and the nuts. So I just have it separated. These go on here, and on the outer one, what you're going to want to do, because this is going to hold your ratchet angle, that's what resets it every time. Like you go through the swing of the motion, you do whatever that ends up being, 7 to 10 degrees of bending, and then you run out of travel. So you reset it as a ratchet into the next one, push again, reset it, and that's how you get up to your, like, I think this one goes to 120 degrees. Some only go up to about 88, and be very careful because that's the cheaper ones. The dies aren't very tight. You always want to have at least 90. I like to be able to go just past 90. You don't usually need that in roll cages, but you never know when it's nice to have that deflection rate, because if you're bending something like chromoly, I think you have a rebend rate of almost like 9 degrees, which is crazy. I've never bent chromoly, I'm just going by what people have told me. Anyways, so what you're doing here is you're going to want to center this on here. So what you do is you've got yourself a collar with a set screw in it. Now there's no exact on this. It's just keeping it so it's floating, like it's not grinding on here. Then I'm oversimplifying it. Right now we're already like 3 pages into the instruction manual, but as you can see, I like my way better. So now, onto there. And put your upper set. Make sure, right, there we go. Would help if I went the right way. There, so now you've turned it into more of a floating mechanism. So every time you're ratcheting, it isn't just metal on metal, it's just floating there. Then this also aids in being a space maintainer with that collar. So after that, it's wrong ones. It's the bolts. Make sure you got a washer on the top. Run it through. Okay, that one's through. Set this one back up. Bolt, washer, run it through. Takes a little bit of working with, but we're good. And then you have 2 lock nuts on that are going to go on the other side. You just put them in loosely for now, because this is what actually anchors it to the stand. But just so you're not messing with stuff, it's good to just lift it up. What also helps is if you put like a 2x4 under there. Apparently I can't do this blindly anymore. Alright, so we got that one. Just be careful that, make sure you put the washers on the right way. Like what I'm holding here is close to 50 pounds. So just make sure you're adequately prepared to have a second person. Like I said, a block, like a 2x4 block under there, because you don't want to pinch your hands. So right there, you've already got, now you've got your ratcheting mechanism. So you'd have an extended lever on here. You can modify this to work with a hydraulic ram, but all you're doing now with the die set in the center is you start there with your piece of tube running through here. We'll show you all that later, but it'll do this. Very simple action. And that's all we've done right now is just set that up. All right, pretty straightforward there. So that is this unit set up. We can go over to the stand and show you how to assemble that. They give you this, it's a spacer. I guess cameraman Mac will walk with me. Goes right on top, and that's just again to set the height, so when you're doing the swing, there's no metal binding, grinding, anything like that. We're actually I need cameraman Mac for this one, so we're gonna set it up on the stand. Definitely have 2 people here. I don't care how strong you are. You drop any of this on your foot, pinch your hands in any of this, you're gonna wish you hadn't. Just get a second person, trust me.
I think the mechanism itself is too floppy until it's set up. So
that's
it's like trying to hold a 50-pound metal squid.
Yeah, that too. Because these have to come out to make this happen. This extra slack is taken up there, so you have to pull that washer and nut off, which means everything could come apart if you're juggling it, and you do not want any of this dropping. Like I said, this is close to 50 pounds, so 22 kilos. You don't want it on your feet.
And the other thing is, if it slips, it's effectively a giant pair of metal scissors.
Oh yeah, like if it's not locked in and it comes down one way, just don't.
Bad deal.
2 people. Keep it closed like that. 2 people. He'll set it up, I'll show you now. So we move the assembly with those lower lock nuts and washers in. I'm gonna rest it right here. So cameraman Mac can take those off. Notice I'm not putting my hands to the insides of any of these. It's on the outer peripheries.
Awesome.
Okay. Now it will hold itself together. He can't, but it will hold itself together. Just be gentle with what you're doing. Now those 2 bolts, I don't know if you can see it under me. Yep, they went through, and you can see how having a second person helps here. It's very little effort on me, very little effort on him, but it'd be a lot of effort trying to do it yourself and keeping it from falling. I know I keep harping on it, but you know what? I'd rather you guys not get hurt. So there, it's not tightened fully, but it'll hold itself, it'll hold its weight. It's not going anywhere. It shows you how it works. Next, we'll show you how to set up a die set. What we are using most on our build is a 1.5" die set. So that's what we'll load for you. So we got all the parts for the 1" die set. You've got the radius die, you've got its counterpart, and the important thing here again is you do not want this to crush. That's the difference between the tubing and the piping, is you can actually, when you have a pipe bender, it actually just kind of pushes it up against the radius and the backside kind of flattens and it crushes it. You have the inner radius on both of these, so when they're together, it grabs around the tube and then it keeps it as round as possible while it wraps around here. So you've got the outer, you've got the inner radius die, and then this goes on to here to actually hold the 1.5" pipe onto here. Each die set comes with its own, I guess you'd call it just a holding clamp, and this is the set pin, and each one has its own radius diameter kind of thing for the scheduler, the tubing that you're using. So I'll show you how to put this all together though. I'm gonna pick this up down here. This needs to come out. One sec. That's the beauty. All these dowels fit in together. This comes out. Put it aside. This goes in there. This will set our center line radius. That is not the right one. That won't set anything. Not this will. Yay! Wiggle it around, look at that. Flowing smoothly. Doing the bull dance, feeling the flow. All right, and then to set that, put that in there. And then you bring around the other side. And then you figure out roughly where that's gonna go. For our purposes, it's right there. And then the piece that actually holds the tube, that goes like so. This is the wrong one. This is for the inch one. This is one's for the 1.5 inches. And then the tubing will go inside there, and the set screw just holds it in place so it doesn't slide when you're doing the bending. Now you're set up. So you'd start back at 0. I guess I could show you the awesome bendy. I think this is used for like fluid when you're cutting and stuff like that, is what this is actually used for, but it does the same thing. So at the end here, got a threaded hole. This can do this if I was, again, more coordinated. I'm very special today. All right. And then what that does is you can use that to articulate. We are not using this, by the way. We're just showing you how it works. So you start out on 0. You take the slack. What you'd actually do is you'd put the pipe in, take the slack out of it, wherever that may be. It may be all the way back there, and then you're supposed to reset it at 0 every time, because there's going to be a little bit of play and everything. So let's say the pipe was in there, you snugged it up, took the slack out, and there you go. 0 degrees. And then you'd start your bend. Just like that. Ratchet it all the way around until say you want it 30 degrees. Guess where you are. School's out. We'll actually make sure that we do a demonstration for you ahead of time. We'll get a piece of pipe for tomorrow